Record this computer. So we're recording now, I guess. So tonight for York College FCA, we have Nick Miguelino here to share his testimony. I have been a part of this man's life since August of 2017. It's been crazy. We have gone through literally life and death together. We've cried, we've laughed, and we've celebrated a lot of crazy stuff. So, Nick, if you want to share your testimony tonight, whatever you want to share, it's all you now.
Okay. Well, I guess it's funny because the way I kind of wanted to start this was that I kind of like telling my testimony, not just based on the fact that I like to talk about myself, but I think it's just a good reminder for me to just kind of look back and see how, leading up through my entire life to where I am now, that, God's had a part of that in my life. And, for the vast majority of my life, I didn't know that. But just the more that I think this is probably maybe the third or fourth time I've told it to a different group of people. And, every time I kind of realize something a little bit different each time that I tell it. So it's just an enjoyable experience for me just to look back and see how, God is working in my life. And I hope that it's an experience for everyone that's listening to this, that, this isn't just happening in my life, it's happening in yours too. And it's happening in every person's life, no matter who they are. And just seeing how every little thing, every person that you meet, every just little circumstantial thing that comes up during each of your days, like it all has a purpose. So I guess where usually my starting point is that I usually say that I did not grow up in a family that was kind of like grounded in the church. I didn't really get raised as a very religious person at all. My mom has ties to the Seventh-day Adventist church that her mom, my grandmother, had been taking her to for her throughout her childhood. And my dad was raised as a Catholic, but when my parents chose to have kids, they decided to not really have that as a part of our lives. They wanted to have it where, if it was going to happen, we were able to make that choice ourselves, basically. So I really didn't have that background to kind of build upon in my life growing up. But the funny thing was that I always kind of had some inclination about it growing up. I actually live with my grandmother on my mom's side, so she was probably the first person, the first individual that I really recognized as someone who was religious in any sort of capacity. I remember that she would try to get us to pray with her. Me and my sister would basically be in the room, and she'd try to get us to pray with her. And for some reason, I just didn't want to do it. I would scream and be like, no, I don't know. I didn't really have any explanation why. I just didn't want to do it. I think just kind of the idea of really not, I don't know, just not really getting, it wasn't a physical thing I was talking to or anything like that. So I think it was a little too complex for how young I was. But I'd always had the pretty general, be a good person and you'll be pretty good off. I remember being younger and even just doing the tiniest little thing wrong, getting angry at someone or something like that, something super minuscule in the grand scheme of things. I remember there were a lot of times I'd go crying to my mom, and I'd be crying and like wanting a hug, and I'd ask her like, oh, does this mean I'm not going to heaven anymore? So like I always had like that thought, or like that kind of mindset, whereas like I knew that being a good person was something that you should be striving for, but it really didn't go much farther than that. And that was probably my mindset all throughout like elementary school, middle school, and pretty much all of high school. I had a couple instances where it's like we were just reading about religion in school and things like that. And I had times like in English class, things like that, where I would like think to myself, like, why is religion like so important to all these people? Like, I really don't understand it whatsoever, but like, it really wasn't a thought that I really built upon. I kind of just had the thought and then kind of just lived my daily life as I normally would as a kid. And I felt like I had a pretty normal childhood growing up, really nothing. I don't know. I was always a happy kid. I was really quiet growing up, but I was always just kind of trying to be the best person that I could. And I guess the first big significant really decision that I made really about anything in my life was the end of my freshman year of high school. I had chosen to try out for the cross country team my sophomore year, strictly for the fact that I wouldn't get cut. So that was that just became something that I was just wanted to do just to get involved in a sport. And that was pretty much the first initial thought of it. And little did I know that when I showed up to cross country practice my sophomore year of high school, that it would end up turning into something that would really drive a lot of my decision making. It was the place where I really met a lot of my long-term friends that I still have from high school. I think I spent a lot of my freshman year of high school trying to be someone that I wasn't, and really being welcomed into a different group of people was something that I really needed. So just the family kind of feeling that I got from the sport, plus just for some reason I randomly just fell in love with the sport itself. I just fell in love with running. By the time I reached the end of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do for school. I didn't know what my career path looked like. The only thing I knew that I wanted to do was run in college. And that was kind of my driving force for going to community college for the first 2 years of college. And partially for the fact that I wasn't really like good enough to get recruited to any sort of NCAA school. I was just hoping that the community college coaches would even take a chance on me at that point, because I was just, I don't know, I had a desire to do it. And I reached out to the coaches and I had them come to my races by the time I was a senior in high school, and they saw enough of me that they wanted to have me on the team. So getting to college, this is where I met Corey and Garrett my freshman year. We were teammates. We were all in the same grade throughout community college. That was when they come into the picture. Community college was a very interesting time of my life. In my experiences, it was definitely the right decision that I made, but it wasn't all like the enjoyable experience that I expected college to be. I left and graduated my sophomore year on not so good terms with a lot of people, and really kind of started a new slate once I graduated my sophomore year and transferred to go to York. And that decision kind of came about also because of running. I knew York had a good running program, and I had been progressing. And fortunately, when I went on my visit to York, I fell in love with the school, and I got the chance to try out to walk on to the cross country team at that point. And that was just another instance of where running was really a big factor into my decision making. Even at that point, like, I had what I thought was going to be my plan for school was I was going to go to York to be a sport management major. But very quickly, once I got there, that plan basically got thrown out the window. So pretty much, again, the only thing that was really driving my decision making was running at that point. And plus, I was comfortable at the school. So, fast forwarding through community college, I get to York, and I lived in the freshman dorms, Manor North. It'll go down in history. My junior year, I lived with one of my high school friends. His name was Ethan. He was someone I've known since his freshman year in high school. So when I was a junior in high school. So at that point, we'd known each other for like 3 or 4 years at that point. And we were really the only two that knew each other kind of going into that school year. So we just decided, hey, let's be roommates. We were going to be on the team. It was just something we were comfortable with. So we decided, hey, let's go for it. Who cares if I live in a freshman dorm? Like, let's go do it. Like, we're all getting the first experience of going away to school for the first time. So I really didn't have a problem with it at all. And the first semester of York was quite a shock to me. Running became infinitely harder than I ever experienced. I was really, really struggling through school, and was also just dealing with just personal life things with my parents starting to go through a divorce by the end of my sophomore year of college. And the first York kind of felt like an escape for me. Heading to York and being out on my own for the first time in my life, it really felt like an escape from all of the stress that I had felt from my family life being at home. And it kind of became unhealthy. I was just really mentally in not a great place. But the one thing that I did notice was that I had started to meet people that were really just into their like faith and into like very passionate about their religion. Dan was one of these people that I first met being on the cross country team. And there were a couple of girls on the team as well that had really been, they stood out to me because they just acted different than other people. They just made different decisions than a lot of other people. They were staying away from parties. They were just overall like really happy with the people that they were. And that was really the first time that I kind of considered like, oh, like what's different about them compared to like me or everyone else that I've met. And I remember going home probably after my first semester at York and talking to my aunt about how that was the first time I'd really met anyone who was like religious, who was around my age. And it made me think like, oh, maybe I could do that. But the biggest thing that was holding me back with that was that I really didn't know where to begin. I didn't really know how to reach out for help. I kind of just had those thoughts and again, kind of just let them go. I wasn't really sure how it was going to benefit me in any sort of way. So kind of having those thoughts for a little bit, they kind of passed by as I went back to school and was kind of just living my life as a normal kid. that first year at York was, it definitely exposed me to a lot more things that I really didn't know about. I had started partying and drinking and doing things that I had never experienced before. And ultimately I started doing a lot of those things because I felt as though that was what was going to make me cool and popular, and that's how I was going to fit in. But the more I kept partying and just making regrettable decisions, I was kind of just feeling ashamed. I kind of felt like I was doing a disservice to myself, my coaches, just my peers, just based on the person I was making myself out to be. And I was just not happy with the way I was living. So going into that was kind of wrapping through my end of my junior year. So I came back my senior year with quite a different mindset in regards to like partying and going out and just doing all of those things. I was much more equipped to say no and just kind of make the decision that was going to make me happy and just not conform to what everyone else was doing. And things were going okay with that until I kind of fell into a big rut by the end of probably towards the end of my first semester of my senior year. I just got into a lot of I was just having a lot of problems with I guess lust is the right word. Things were just, I was looking for satisfaction in places that I had never really tried before. And I thought, hey, why not? Let's see if this is something that everyone's making it out to be. And it just happened to be that it kind of made me it put me in a positive image with the people I was interacting with, but deep down I was kind of feeling, I guess, kind of depressed about it. I just really, really wasn't happy. I just wasn't happy with the image I was forming of myself. And I started to feel as though I was losing touch with who I was. I described at points that I really didn't have an identity of my own. I had started to journal by the beginning of 2019, and that was one of the things I wrote at one point, was I didn't feel like I had any sort of identity for myself, and I was just very conformative to what the people around me were doing, and that really shaped how I acted. So I kind of going through into March of 2019, so a good bit into the second semester of my senior year. I'm planning to stay one more semester at York to finish up school. And me, a couple of my friends, including my friend Ethan, who I roomed with my junior year, were looking to set up our housing situation for the next year. We were basically looking for a fifth roommate. We had 4 in our group. We needed one more. And the deadline for basically figuring it all out was, this was the 26th of March, I remember exactly. The deadline was on the 27th to figure that out. So I remember we were in my dorm room that night. And I'm getting really just agitated. I'm screaming, I'm yelling, I'm just really upset. And I remember very vividly that Ethan had done a really good job of calming me down. He basically said, everything's going to be fine. We don't have to worry about this, or we can talk about it tomorrow. Okay. And that pretty much set me straight. And he had left the room, and that was that pretty much. So I woke up, had to cram a bunch of phone calls in with the residence life office. And I remember texting in our group chat with the 4 of us that were going to be rooming together that we needed to figure this stuff out. I had basically been stressing about it all morning, and I hadn't even gone to class yet. So I was walking to my first class of the day. It was probably around 10:30, 11 a.m. And we get a email from the president of the school that a student had passed away. And obviously when I read this, I don't really think anything of it, because obviously they don't give a name. They just say that it did happen. And my first thought was, oh, again, because that was the second student that year that had passed away. So obviously I was upset that it had happened again, but, didn't really think much of it. And I get to class, and I immediately get an email from our coach basically saying, we're having a meeting at 12 p.m. noon. You have to go, skip class if you have to show up. And now I'm getting worried that this is serious. This is someone that I know. And I'm starting to try to just be optimistic. Maybe it's someone that, I don't know, maybe it's just some student, and our coaches are trying to just get the team together and make sure everyone's okay. So I remember they had us in this big room. If you don't go to York, we have like this in our student union where like the main dining hall is. There's like a downstairs area, and they just had us in basically this big room, and they just laid out a bunch of chairs. And it was a very weird feeling when I walked into the room. It was completely silent, and people were already crying. So I'm pretty confident at this point that it was someone that I knew. And it was a very surreal feeling knowing that, like, when I saw people walking into that room, like, I knew they were alive and not dead. That was just a very scary feeling. And I remember seeing the minutes on the clock ticking past 12 and seeing a bunch of people in the room and scanning the room and really trying to figure out who was missing. And I could not figure it out for the life of me. And it reached the point where my coach stood up, and he kept it really short. He said he wasn't going to like dilly-dally around what actually was going on. He had said that last night, Ethan had passed away in his sleep. And I just remember my head hitting the desk, and I immediately started crying. And pretty much they just let us deal with our emotions any way that we needed to. And that's when they stopped talking, and everyone was, just hugging each other and doing everything that we like needed to. And I honestly don't remember how long I spent in that room, but I can tell you I was the last person to leave. Ethan was my best friend. He was someone who I knew was going to be in my life forever. And I had envisioned him being my best man at my wedding. And I couldn't wait till he turned 21 so we could go to the bar and get drinks, things like that. And I just felt there was so much to look forward to, and we were really getting to know each other, like living together and just being around each other all of the time that we used to be in high school. And all of that was gone. And I just didn't know what to do. I think we were all really distraught. I skipped all of my classes, like pretty much all of us did. And I barely slept. I was so scared of sleeping. I was afraid of just somehow just dying in my sleep at some point, because it had never even dawned on me that could just happen. The way I've had it explained to me, and the only way I know, is that he would have never felt anything. That's really all I know, and that's something I'm at peace with. I really don't want to know more, because I don't want to even think about if that ever could have been preventable or anything like that. But, you know, there was one night. So I only remember this so much because it was just a very significant point. But that day where we found out the news was a Wednesday. And we had a meet coming up on that Saturday, a track meet. And somewhere in between the Wednesday and Saturday, I think it was on that Friday. So right in between the two significant dates. I was up with two of my roommates until like 5 a.m. We just couldn't stop talking. And, you know, we were just letting everything out about the situation that we could. We just wanted to be there for each other. And just ultimately it led to a really, really long conversation. And, you know, I started to think about the night before he passed. Some of the things I pointed out to them was like, you know, I worked at the gym that night. I had a 2-hour shift at the gym, and I remember walking back to my dorm, and I remember looking up and seeing the stars. I'm like, man, it's like a perfect night outside. Like, what could go wrong? It feels like something out of a movie. And, you know, I started to think about how the night before Ethan passed away, his mom surprised him at school and took him out for dinner. I remember me and some of my friends tried to get dinner with Ethan at the dining hall, but he was like, oh, sorry, my mom came and wanted to visit. So I was thinking to myself, like, man, I'm so glad like his mom got to see him before this. I couldn't imagine like what that must be like if that never happened. And, you know, it was just a really circumstantial thing. And I started to think about, you know, the person that he was, and like the things he taught me, the things he taught other people, and how wise he was, and just really taking all of that in. You know, I came to the conclusion, and I told my roommates this. I was like, you know, maybe God has something to do with this. And I was like, you know, I'm not like a religious person, like maybe, but maybe like it just, that moment made me realize how little I controlled of my own life. I grew up with the mindset that anything that I wanted to get, or anything I wanted to achieve, or anything I wanted to control, that was up to me. But that moment changed everything. That I was so little in this entire universe that we live in, that there's no way I can control all of those things. If I was able to control all of those things, I would have obviously never let that happen to Ethan. So I started to think, you know, this is happening for a reason. Ethan was put here on this earth to do, you know, he was always someone who was really good at just teaching people things, whatever it was, helping someone through a difficult situation at school, any sort of drama, any sort of just difficult situation with literally anything you could think of. He was the first person that anyone that I knew would go to for help. You know, I am confident in saying that that was what his purpose was on life, and he accomplished that. And I am pretty confident in saying that, you know, like he did what he was brought here to do. And I think that now it's just up to us to kind of continue to build on the things that he taught me and the things that he's taught other people. So that was really the first time that God came into the picture. I was 21 years old. The first 21 years of my life, that was not a thought I would have ever had. I had thought about it, but I never believed it until that day. So reaching out to other people was my next step. I knew I needed to tell someone about this that would be able to help me. So one of my, I guess, former teammates now, her name is Elena DeBruin. She was in my grade and was one of those people one of those like people that were really into their faith that I had really noticed that people really wanted to be around. And she was just a very friendly and open person. And I felt as though she was someone who was really going to be able to help me. So I sent her a very long Instagram DM one night, the day before our meet on that Saturday, and basically told her everything that I just told you guys. And her response was, like, absolutely, I want to help you. And I just remember the two of us met at a Dunkin' Donuts like a couple of days later. And she's like, all right, what do you want to know? And me not knowing anything at this point, I said, well, everything. Like, I want to know everything. And I had no idea what that meant. I look back and that's such a funny moment just to think about how far I've come. Because there's no way for any of us to know everything unless you are God yourself, which none of us are. And that was really the start where, she explained just the very simple things about Christianity, like the 10 Commandments and, like how God created the universe and has been, setting the course of history to have his son brought to the world to die for us for our sacrifice, because our punishment for our sin is death, and he was the one who took our place. And that was really the beginning. I went to church for the first time in my entire life, April. So probably about a month after Ethan had passed. And I remember very vividly, I had felt as though, I described it to her. I was like, I felt as though God was in the room talking to me. Like, I was just so into what, her dad is the pastor at the church that I went to when I was at school. And I just felt as though it was me and God in that room. And he was just talking to me, and I was just jotting things down on my little sheet of paper that like the little booklet that they give you, with all of the notes and things like that in it. So I started just writing like crazy. And I was like, that was just a really reassuring moment to know, like, this is the right thing for me to do. This is what's going to really help me. Like, even though I was so sad about what had happened, I was so happy because of what I had been given because of it. And once I finished that year, I went home and through quite a crazy chain of events, got connected to a church back home. I'm from Howard County, Maryland, just outside of Baltimore. And I got connected with a whole bunch of people at the church that I now go to now that I'm home and graduated from college. And that's been such a great experience to meet so many people, both at the church that I first initially went to in Pennsylvania and now at the church that I go to in Maryland. I just have such a great support system of people of all ages that want nothing more than to just help each other. I remember that summer when I went home for the first time and was really meeting a lot of Christians that were my age and just really seeing how passionate they were and how much they really wanted to just help me and be a part of their group. That was the happiest I'd ever been in my life. Just to know like how reassuring it was that I was going to be okay and that, God had a plan for me. And now I was just super, super thankful, even through all of the tragedy. Like, I had been given the greatest gift that I could have ever been given. And, that's kind of led me through to today. I went back for my last semester of college. I graduated, I came home, and I was fortunate enough to find a job right before the COVID pandemic really hit really hard. I found a job right at the end of March of this year. And that was right before the pandemic just got really bad. So I was just really fortunate for that opportunity. And from there, it's just been continuing to build on just who, just fostering that relationship between myself and God, and just, I've had my fair share of struggles. I've tried to plenty of times just think that, I know best about myself, and I've tried to control aspects of my life so many times since I first discovered who he was about 1.5 years ago. And every single time that I try to lead my own life, I get angry, I get just distraught, I had a really bad couple of months actually recently with my mental health. My anxiety was at its worst that it's ever been. I had never been so just angry and upset about the life I was living. And I'm just really fortunate that even at my weakest, like, I was able to recognize that, like, seeking God and desiring to be the person that he wants me to be, that's where I'm going to find the most happiness and the most satisfaction. And I can say to anyone who is listening to this that that's 100% true for you too. If you seek him and just come to him as you are, nothing surprises him. Nothing surprises him. Like, nothing, no matter what situation you're in, no matter how you're feeling, just say a prayer one time, just like talk to God about it, it's just been, he's so reassuring, and, it's something that I've just been continuing to build on. I'm taking actually a lot of like Sunday school classes at the moment where the groups I'm in are just really trying to support each other, especially through the times that we're in right now that are really stressful and just, they're difficult for everyone. Everyone's been going through it. So just, I mean, do I have anything else to add? I guess the moral of the story is just that, like, if there's any doubt that, God doesn't have the best plan for you, I've had those doubts. I've questioned a lot of the things that have happened. I've questioned why God would let certain things happen. I've tried to control a lot of portions of my life, but I found that I am just happiest when, we put him on the throne where he deserves to be. And if anyone has any questions about, anything that is going on in your spiritual lives, things like that, I'd love to be able to talk about it if you guys want to connect about that. The just church communities that I've been in have been so supportive of me. And if there's anything that I want to do, is I want to be a part of that support system as well for you if you need it. That kind of, I love to talk, and I would definitely talk more if I wanted to keep you guys all night, but I'm not going to do that. The majority of you guys are still in school and doing your thing. So that's kind of a snippet of my story. I guess, does anyone have any questions or anything you guys want to say?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yeah, what's up?
What would you say for someone who was at the beginning pretty religious but kind of has lost a little bit of faith?
I've had those experiences where, sometimes I've really experienced it in the sense of you have your highs and you have your lows, where sometimes I just feel really in a rhythm of, reading the Bible and just being in those just like, I don't know, just really being able to slow down and really look at God's word and understand like what he wants me to be like as a person. And kind of there's so many stories about how he has controlled history to get to this point. I think when I personally have had those struggles, I find it when I find that a lot of those struggles come from when I'm not like, I think I try to grasp and hold on to like the last bit of every bit of control that I can. Like I try to say like, you know, like God has this, but like this thing, whatever it is mine. Like I did this, like with running, for example, is like, you know, I did this. Like it wasn't God who did it. It wasn't anyone else. It was me. But you know, it's sometimes like, I don't know, like the simplest thing for me sometimes is just to just continue to like trust and understand that even when things aren't going great and when, you know, when you're struggling, like ultimately like God's promises are a guarantee. He has guaranteed us eternal life if we seek him and follow him. And for me, I just remember personally that, you know, like I'm at my happiest when I put him on the pedestal that he deserves to be and not put myself above him. So yeah, it's a tough question. But yeah, I think the biggest thing too would be also just to, you know, to not be like afraid to talk to people about it. Like if you have questions or if you're struggling, like, you know, don't keep that to yourself. Like it's very, very difficult to try to figure it all out yourself, because I've tried to do that before too. And it doesn't work very well, at least in the experiences that I've had. I've tried to answer the questions that God has put into my life, and I've never really been able to come up with an answer. So I think just the biggest thing is just to, you know, just ask questions, because I mean, there's no human that doesn't struggle with this stuff. The only human that was ever able to be perfect with any of these things was Jesus. So I think just the biggest thing is just to, I don't know, just for whatever like denomination you are, whatever group you're a part of, whether it's, I don't know, whatever church you go to, just we're all one body, we're all one team. So I think the biggest thing would just be to help each other. And yeah, that's kind of my ramble with that. Yeah.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yep.
I will say that, Nick, you have been an amazing part of my life. Whenever I'm at FCA camps as a huddle leader, we usually have a question and answer session. And one of the questions will always be, why do bad things happen to good people? And you and I have always said this. We love Ethan. We loved every moment that we had with him. But I don't think that this would have played out exactly. Your faith journey, I don't think it played out without Ethan's death. Maybe it would have happened later on, but we both know that this is something that has turned into a blessing in disguise. I wouldn't wish it on anyone else, but just the transformation that has happened in your life, it's been amazing to watch, to help be a part of, and I absolutely love it. I love you, and it's just been amazing.
Yeah, and even just with that whole situation itself, it could have played out in a million different other outcomes too. It could have been where, you know, like I could have ended up in a much worse, like a much worse place than I am now, or where I ever could have been, if that happened, like, say, I don't know, one day before, one day after, who knows. But you know, it's still a little bit of a weird thing to think of, you know, like you have your best friend pass away and you think that's like at one point that was the worst thing. I mean, obviously, like, that was the most sad that I've ever been in my life. And it's still a little weird to me that even sometimes, like, you know, the greatest things that I've been given, the greatest things I've been able to realize have come from that. So I mean, yeah, it's weird because, like, I don't know, like, you just don't ever, like, obviously you never wish that upon anyone, but just to see how things have played out, I'm just so thankful for how it did, even in those circumstances. I've just have found so much happiness and self-worth through what I found, and I'm just really, really grateful.
Yeah. All right. I would just like to say thank you so much for your testimony, Nick. And you know, I remember meeting you first day of practice freshman year, ACC and everything. Just to see you grow to what you are now is just tremendous. You know, just to hear your story from when I knew you at community college to you going to York to where you are now, you know, just hearing your journey, it just shows like I've seen you grow so much with your character and by you getting closer with God through your faith. And it just shows how your character that you took such a tragic event that could have broken many people, but you took it to as an opportunity to get closer to God and you thank him for that. And it's just great to see the person that you've grown into. And this story you just shared is very, you know, it's a triumphant journey, and it definitely made me have an outlook on life differently. I'm sure you need to keep sharing it because I'm sure it will touch many other people as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, you know, I think back to the person I was when I met you, like, I just, like, I don't know, it's like night and day compared to, like, the things that I like, the things that we, like, I don't know, I was young and immature and just, you know, you seek after things that you think are going to make you happy and they just don't. Um, and you know, a lot of the stuff when you're younger is like, oh, like relationships, you know, like drinking, partying, like when I got a little bit older, um, you know, and just a lot of those, I mean, obviously, like, it's through those experiences that I've been taught these things that I know now. So yeah, it's just been a crazy, like, I don't know, this is like a very surreal thing. I never expected you and Garrett to be here. I don't know, like, just to even have like you guys here and hearing this story, it's really special to me, just because, like, you know, I've told people like, oh, I only talk to like 2 or 3 people at HCC still, and like to be able to, you know, reconnect again and still have this, you know, be able to share the story with you guys has been just a really special experience for me. So I'm really glad you guys got to hear it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nick, for this time. This time I think is gonna close us in prayer. You would bow your head. Dear Lord, thank you for this time that we could listen to Nick and hear the amazing story that you've given to him, the path that you've had him walk, and his transformation to being a child of God. I thank you for the experience, for being able to walk with him as a brother. I thank you for him and just for his willingness to share his testimony as well. I pray for safety and blessing for everyone as they go about their week. In your name, amen.
Amen.